On Chris Van Vliet's Insight podcast this week, Sabu. That's right, the hardcore legend. Not McFoley, not Sandman, or any other hardcore guy, Tommy Dreamer, all that shit. Sa-fucking-boo was on the Insight podcast with Chris Van Vliet. A rare appearance by Sabu, by the way. You don't see or hear from Sabu all that much here in the wrestling business, especially hear from. Dude used to never even talk. He just lived the gimmick, but now in the kayfabe-less world that we live in, he's talking, just not very well and not very much. But he talked to Chris Van Vliet this week, and this is exactly what he had to say about his time in WWE. Check this out.
Yeah. What would you say was the biggest difference between Sabu and ECW and then Sabu and WWE's version of ECW?
They said they wanted the WWE version, but when I got there, the ECW version, when I got there, they want to make it a new version. So soften me down. I already toned myself down, and they were toning me down more. Every match, they're toning me down.
In what ways do you feel like they really toned you down the most?
Well, they'll say, if I jump off the chair and do a kick, they go, "You can't do that." I go, "Why?" He goes, "That's Jeff Hardy's spot." I said, "Shit." I go, "I'm going to break a table leg." No. Elijah Burke's going to break a table leg. I go, "But it's my gimmick. Not here it isn't." That's what they said. I said, anything I said I invented, they said, "You didn't invent it here."
Yeah. And I mean, you weren't able to use the chairs as much as a weapon like you were able to in ECW.
The first couple months, first few weeks, I did use that like I always did. Then they slowly took everything away.
Yeah.
We would do ECW, WWE, hardcore or extreme matches on the road, and there would be no extreme matches. We wouldn't even break a table or use a chair.
I think to a large extent, Sabu just was hard to work with. I think there was a resistance for a guy like Sabu to change his style. You know, you hear him talk about, oh, they didn't want me to do this. They didn't want me to do that. They didn't want me to do this. So I invented the table spot. Well, you didn't invent it here because that's somebody else's here. I invented the chair. Well, that's somebody else's using it. Sabu, as great as he was in ECW, had the potential because he was great. He was great. Sabu was not only just exciting to watch in a hardcore style, but he could actually wrestle. He couldn't wrestle like Kurt Angle, but the dude was entertaining to watch in the ring. But when he decides that, I'm not going to do that, that doesn't work for me, brother. When you go to WWE and that's your mentality, you have to know when you go to a company like that, that this is not the bingo hall, all right? This is not Barbed Wire City. This is WWE. This is the big time. This is the big show. This is mainstream. This is going to be on ESPN and fucking whatever else. You know what I'm saying? The news. This is in the public eye. Your bingo halls were not in the public eye. They were big. They were popular with wrestling fans. They were not mainstream. Now you are a mainstream wrestler in the WWE. Now you have to change your style. We want you because we see potential in you. We don't want you because we like you exactly the way you are. That's another thing. People, well, why did they ask me to come work for them then if they wanted me to change everything that I do? Dude, you can't work that way for the mainstream company. You can work mostly that way. You just got to dial it back. And there's shit you can't do. And there's shit that you can't do because it's got to wait for another show or somebody else is doing it. And because you are a new guy here, whether you have clout in the bingo hall community or not, you have zero clout backstage in WWE. So if you want that paycheck and you want that opportunity to be even bigger than you are, because make no mistake about it, Sabu is one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling ever already, just based on what he did in ECW. He made a big name for himself in Japan, but a lot of people obviously over here didn't see that, and that was earlier in his career. But when it came to WCW, he had a cup of coffee there, if that. When he was in WWE, was a couple cups of coffee, but Sabu, in his own words, they didn't want me to do what I wanted to do. Well, you work for me now. You don't get to do what you want to do. They didn't try to change him and turn him into Eugene. They didn't pitch him Kerwin White. He was Sabu. He was jumping off the top rope and jumping through the ropes and jumping over the ropes and hitting people with chairs. And he was the wild man. He was the fucking elephant boy, right? But he was a different elephant boy. He was WWE's version of the elephant boy. He was tamed down, and that's what you need to be. You got to realize this is WWE. You can't go into a company like that and expect that you're just going to do whatever the fuck you want, work exactly how you did on the indies. They retrain everybody. This is a new place now. This is a new way of doing things. We like you. We want you here. We like your style. We need you to tone it down a little bit. And Sabu was a guy that just didn't want to do that. He had no interest in being anything other than exactly what he always was in ECW. And I don't mean that he was not able to take work direction. You know, he worked fine with Paul E. I just think Sabu was very close-minded as a worker. I think he had an idea of what he was and what he needed to be, what he wanted to be, what he thought his fans would appreciate, what style he thought was the right way to present, and it just doesn't work like that. He was, what would have been different with ECW? He was asked, what could WWE have done different with the ECW brand once they started it? And he said, just let it be, let us be ECW and run it completely separate from WWE and don't touch it. You can't do that. You can't. Did they fuck up ECW? Yeah, because ECW is not a brand that... ECW is a brand that needed to be on its own. It needed to be its own thing. You can't WWEize ECW. And even if they would have brought it on and let it be its own thing, they really couldn't have fully brought it on because they're a public traded company. They can't just... we're going to just do barbed wire and blood and guts all day, every day. They can do a little bit of it here and there, but you can't just make that your lifestyle. They can't be the old ECW locker rooms. It can't, he was never going to fit in there. And I don't think he tried. Now, I could be completely wrong. I wasn't there. But from every other interview I've ever heard and from words from Sabu's mouth himself on how he explains things, he was just not going to fit in WWE for the long term. A legend, a fantastic career, but he could have been so much bigger if he would have just gave in just a little bit. He didn't need to be Kerwin White. He got to be Sabu still. But he had to be a different Sabu, and he wasn't willing to do that. I would go out of your way to check out this interview just because of the rarity of it. It was not a good interview. Sabu is probably one of the most difficult interviews Chris has had to deal with in a long time. Felt like just listening to it felt like pulling teeth a little bit. He's not a talkative guy. He wasn't difficult in the sense of being a dick or just not wanting to talk to Chris. He just doesn't have anything to say. He's not a talker. He stands there and looks intimidating. He's not a happy guy in general. He's kind of a miserable fuck. So interesting interview, worth going out of your way to check out because of the rarity of it. He also had that Jeannie chick with her. Apparently she's got her leg chopped off by the doctors too, and that's a whole thing they talk about. They got GoFundMes and stuff. I'm not going to plug it here because I didn't write it down, and I'm not going to go back and check. But if you feel obliged, go check it out and support all of their shit. But yeah, ECW, Sabu on the Insight with Chris Van Vliet podcast. It was certainly a rarity. We'll say that. Hey, thanks for checking out that clip. Don't forget to check out other clips here on the channel. And while you're there, throw a like, throw a subscribe. And don't forget to check out full episodes each and every Sunday of the Pro Wrestling Podcast.